Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to yet another edition of International Forum. I am Wilson Marshall. Yes, 4 minutes behind schedule. I want to apologize for that. We have to bring in things to really make this show worth the while. It's all about global posturing. Yeah, US, China, Russia power play. It's not news that China and Russia, they are like 5 and 6, so to speak. Yes, for a long time, they've not been trying to do things together. All of a sudden, from economic tie, they are now planning military tie. It happened 24th of this month, this year, talking about military tie, talking about undergoing the same drill, talking about doing things together just to safeguard their own territory. And this is not making US to be comfortable. It's not making them to be at ease. That is what we're talking about today. What does it really portend, or will I say stood for, when we talk about global peace or global policing? It's all about global posturing, and US, China, Russia, they are very much in the picture. With me here in the studio is a lecturer, a political analyst. Join me to welcome Professor Anthony Ijiwere. Prof, welcome to International Forum.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Yeah. Here we are. The long-awaited partnership in terms of military, in terms of technology, in terms of so many other things that has to do with the show force between China and, of course, Russia. It happened on the 24th of this month, November. And tongues have been wagging that with this union, with this to some is an unholy union, while to some other is blessed holy union. What do you feel might just transpire?
That's between the US and China?
Yes.
Yes.
Because right now China is pairing with Russia.
Yes. Well, if you, before I answer that question, we have to have some small theoretical background. That generally international affairs or international politics, according to Morgan Tao, a well-known political analyst, he said that other things can vary. He said other things can vary in a nation, but the national interest remains constant. So by that statement is indirectly also saying that nations' relationship between one nation and the other is based on what the nation can benefit, for its citizens. And that is what leads to a good relationship with between one country and the other. We are aware of Usman bin Laden's case, how he was supposed to be a friend to the US, how eventually became a terrorist and all that. We want to look at the military might of the US as the greatest power in the world right now. And if you look at the economic ties between US and China, for example, it's about $586 trillion, the trade ties, between US and China. Though US is suffering the deficit of $310 billion, because we mean China also have an edge over them. Then if you compare that to Russia, it's about $107 billion in trade. If you look at the figures, it's so clear, obvious that the relationship between China and US will be more positive from the economic perspective. That's why some of us are not surprised. And we also realize that the US, normally China is the second greatest creditor to the US after Japan. And so if you take this background into consideration, you won't be surprised as to why there's a serious, seems to be a serious romance between the US and China as against Russia. And so But when it comes to military might, you know, U.S. is in charge. And so where China is having an edge over trade ties, the U.S. is also having an edge in supplying of military weapons and what have you. And so we have to remember that also in international relations that countries specialize in those goods in which they have the greatest comparative advantage over others. Therefore, U.S., when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to military weapons, they are there, they are in charge. And China may want to also borrow the technology, you know, of military weapons, you know, from the U.S. And maybe the irrigation policy or system of the U.S. And so, when it comes to credit, giving credit to countries, China is number one, you know, to U.S. Though we know Japan also does the same thing, but China is very good in entering the affairs of a country through this credit thing, you know, and therefore, you see that U.S. has an advantage of agriculture, military weapons, and other. While China, on the other hand, in terms of trade, tends to have a bigger advantage over the U.S. And that's why the U.S. is running at a 310 billion trade deficit with the U.S. And that's why some of us were not surprised when Donald Trump was in power. He was, doling out a lot of taxes against the goods of China coming to U.S. And I think when Biden came on board, decided to mellow down and respect the fact that China has a comparative advantage in terms of trade and therefore try to play along. I think that's where we are today.
All right, now if you take a look at the relationship between U.S. and China right now, country, but it has gone south.
Yes.
Because of U.S. interference according to China with the issue pertaining Taiwan, because China vowed to make Taiwan part of the mainland China and Taiwan to be on their own because they have U.S. as their ally. But right now, Russia has been the known, so to speak, right now, enemy of the U.S. But China and Russia, they're beginning to have this romance. At first, it was economic tie, and right now it's a military tie. They are saying they want to protect their territory and countries around them against U.S. invasion. How do you think this will pan out?
Well, it is expected. Like I said earlier, and if we have to go back to what Margot Tal said, political scientist, that each country protects its own interest. Other things can vary. If by today, some countries are trying to invade Nigeria or Nigeria's interests at stake, the U.S. wouldn't mind whether the government has been violating human rights and what have you. They will always come and say, hey, as long as we have good trade ties with Nigeria, so why not? The relationship continues. You remember the case of even Kanu, where the government, some of his disciples were saying, it's a British citizen, and therefore, he must be given support by Britain. And I'm sure when Britain looked at the trade ties between herself and Nigeria, and decided to say, hey, we don't support anything terrorism. And so, Nigeria is a sovereign country. Therefore, whatever decision they are taking, we cannot challenge it, but we can always advise, that they should ensure that the due process of law is obeyed, so that Kano will have a good and fair hearing, So going with the same token, we are also saying that China is only trying to protect its interest, and we should know that there's a serious rivalry between Taiwan and China in terms of trade, in terms of military might. So the U.S. will always take side with, some of us are not too surprised, the side they are taking with Taiwan, because there's a good rapport, relationship, international relations
between Taiwan and U.S.
Yes, between Taiwan and U.S.
And that is not making China happy.
Well, how will it make them happy? Because Taiwan and China, they are good, they are rivals in terms of the Asian countries, their rival, and therefore there's this competition, there's this serious competition between the two nations. So, and that is why, to some extent, look as if China tends to be leaning towards Russia, and Taiwan tends to be, because these are the two world powers, you know, and Russia, and in terms of military might, anyway, Russia and the U.S. So, in the process of each nation protecting their interests, they are definitely going to have blocks, you know, they are supporting. And so that's why some of us are not surprised about the activity that is going on in that region.
All right. Now, if you take a look at the military might, you talked about U.S. being the apex right now. But with the combined force between China and Russia, do you see them rivaling U.S. military might? Because from what they are saying, take a look at the clip, they are coming together, doing this together, working together to manufacture, to revamp, you know, to empower themselves, military speaking. Should U.S. be worried?
Of course, they'll be worried. You know, they'll be worried, and that is why some of us are not surprised when they set up bases. You know, they have bases in Persian Gulf and all these other countries close to the, you know, the perceived enemies. That's why they have bases. And the beauty of American government is this: they protect their citizens with all their might, with all their power. And so anything they know that will hurt the average American, the interest the average American, then they do everything to protect it. And they don't allow the war to come into their country. Rather, they set up military bases, you know, as a buffer that will fight any kind of invasion. And by implication, they are trying to also protect their trade ties with Taiwan and trade ties even with China, you know. But unfortunately, the problem U.S. is having with China, they are dominating trade. I just told you not long ago how they are experiencing a trade deficit of $310 billion. That's a huge amount of money. And so why should U.S. have a positive trade relationship with China, you know, because that deficit. And that's why Donald Trump, during his time, he did all he could to ensure that he reduces the deficit between China and the U.S. So U.S. will do anything to ensure that there's a strong tie between his allies and those he perceived to be weak, if you like, in military might. Where perhaps trade is not favoring them, then of course they will use what they have, the military might, to get their way or win some ally, you know, to their side, so that they can achieve their national interests.
Well, now some of the people that the reason why they're forming these allies because China and Russia, they're fighting for the soul of Asia. No people that U.S. have their allies in Asia and of course in European country. Is that what is really playing out itself in all of this power play?
If what?
You're talking about fighting for the soul of Asia because Russia and China came together to say, look, Asian countries, you're not here to bully, you're here to protect you against external forces, external interests. We want to be free. Because according to report, they said they are sick and tired of seeing U.S. occupying some of their airspaces or close to their borders. So,
it's expected. It's expected. You see, the U.S. is seen. The U.S. wants to be seen continuously and permanently as the police of the world, you know, and that is how they get a lot of their allies, you know, because if you are talking about modern sophisticated military weapons, it's the U.S. that has it, you know, because they invest a lot in defense, they invest a lot in manufacturing of weapons. You know, you cannot compare China weapons with that of, you know, the U.S. because the U.S. Weapons are more technologically very advanced, and if you like, they are more destructive. These are submarine and these are modern missile and all that. They're more sophisticated
but the report has it that China and Russia also that they're beginning to level up the playing field.
Yes, they're beginning to learn, but what we are saying, they're always spying. They just bring the U.S. weapon, dismantle it, and try to see how they can gain one or two knowledge from it and use it to produce their own. But when you are talking about military might, military weapons, the U.S. has it. Everybody knows that. So every country who wants a kind of protection, who wants to be recognized with the big countries. They will naturally like to associate with the U.S. So that's why if you watch Taiwan, their lifestyle, their way of life, their culture, their tradition, though it's similar to that of China a bit, but they tend to be more open in terms of commerce, as compared to China. And China tends to be a bit sluggish because of their cultural background, the do's and don'ts of their value system, but Taiwan is more civilized. More liberal. I think that's the word, more liberal and all that. And so they feel more comfortable, being with the U.S. and ensuring that there's national interest is protected, especially in the area of trade and the area of military might, which they think they can get from the U.S. So that's why some of us are not surprised about the romance between the two nations.
Now, all right. Now, some are saying that with due respect to the U.S., they're like, poke-nosing into, affairs of countries other than theirs. For instance, they have this knock against Russia because of the activities in the eastern part of Ukraine. They have this knock also against China because of what China is trying to do, bringing Taiwan back to the mainland so they can be one indivisible country to make it to be more powerful. Is U.S. really biting more than it can chew?
I don't,
because we're talking about two great forces now coming together against one.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's a case of U.S. It's a case of having interest, general power over all nations. You see, we also have to look at it from this other perspective. How many nations are supporting developing countries? E.g., when they have starvation problem, when they have medical problem, when they have war problem, how many nations actually rush food aid, medical aid, to less developed countries when they are having a crisis, domestic crisis? It's the U.S. It's the U.S. And so they do everything to ensure that their influence is felt.
But China is beginning to borrow a lead from the U.S. in that regard, giving out loans, giving out grants.
Poisonous loans. Poisonous loans. You give out loans, you take over the airport. You give out loans, you take over. you take over the warehouses and all that. That's not good loan. Then the moment you default, then they bring their men to be running your airport and running government facilities. So by so doing, where's the sovereignty of that country? They take over the sovereignty of the country. You see, let me tell you, the man that plays the piper dictates the tune. So if you are giving loan to a country, and in most cases, a lot of developing countries cannot meet up with the repayment of such loans. So it's like be my bride. And so they take over the affairs of such country. Then they dictate, to some extent, what the government will look like. They influence government policies for their own interests, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, leaders of most developing countries, they tend to play along. As long as their bank account is filled up, they don't give a damn about the interests of that country, whether they are accumulating loans that will affect generations of that generations from generations to come with that. They don't give a damn. And so China knows that perfectly. So they take advantage of it. But if you compare to that of US, it's not in terms of loan, it's in terms of medical facilities, food aids. It's like when this COVID-19 thing was on, there's a lot of, the U.S. donated a lot of vaccines and what have you, to less developing nations. You see, that is the source of things. So why are they doing that? They want to assert their authority. They want to assert their power, okay, as the police of the world, as the almighty father of the world. And so they want countries to be seeing them from that perspective. And so naturally, any country would like to associate with them. But you see, emerging nations like China, whose economy is the second biggest after the U.S. in the world, they want to create an environment where they'll be recognized. This US thing, let's see how we can break their bone. And perhaps that is why they tend to be having a good romance or relationship with Russia. With Russia, you know, so that let's see how we can, this Asian region, let's see how we can dominate, just like the US is also dominating the European, region. Let's see how we can dominate. Let's not allow the US to come in and destabilize our plan of taking over Asia. So if we can use Russia to achieve that purpose, why not? You know, but the US is also saying, while you are a local regional champion, we are world regional champion. You know, we are world, and that is why they are setting up bases. You know, and those bases they set up is not just Americans that are working there. You know, the citizens of such countries are also working there, and what they also do, they train the military personnel of such countries. We are aware of what they did recently. The Americans hardly sell their high-tech aircraft, war aircraft, to any country. They do a lot of homework because of this terrorism thing. But recently, they saw some of this, Traco aircraft to Nigeria, you know, and they said
Tucano jets. Tucano jets.
Yeah, Tucano jets.
Yeah.
They saw some good numbers and they put some improviso. They say, look, it's only for terrorists. Don't use it to fight any organization that is not a terrorist organization. You know, so and the whole idea is to ensure that, look, any countries that is having problems, they will come in and solve it. How many countries have come in to do what America is doing in other countries? So these are the issues. So when they now start reaping the benefit, or countries are trying to associate with them, you won't be surprised, because they have done their homework. They have done their homework. Because he who dictates who
plays the piper,
who plays the piper, dictates the tone. Those who gives you food is also a very good friend when you are in need, and the country comes in to help you, is a very good friend. So it's a local domestic relationship that Americans are capitalizing on, where they know countries are having problems. They go there, try to solve the problem, you know, so that...
But US have been accused of being selective in solving problems.
Of course, in the name of our national interest.
And so as that is the reason why the reach of US is becoming more and more shortened by the day.
Of course, in the rate of national interest. When you don't have national interest, why should you go into a country to do what? To do what? Once upon a time, there was a Nigerian presidential candidate, and they will say, oh, he cannot enter the U.S. He cannot in 2019 presidential election. Oh, he cannot enter the U.S., cannot enter the U.S. But when they opened his bank account, they saw that this man has some good millions of investment in the U.S. They said, well, we know, nobody is perfect, you know. From nowhere, it's okay, come to the U.S. He was invited, and he went to the U.S. and had his way and came back. So the implication of that is simple. Every nation, not just America, every nation must always try to maintain its national interest. Yes, it's natural, it's national interest. But America goes to the extreme length. Reason is obvious, because that father of the world, police of the world, they want to maintain it. And they will do everything possible to maintain it. And if Nigeria had that opportunity, they also do it. We are aware the influence of Nigeria in West Africa, in the whole of Africa. So what are we talking about? Do we not shut our border, Cotonou, and Cotonou economy suffered? Because what were we protecting? Our interest, to make sure that our local goods, you know,
thrive.
Yes, our manufacturers can sell their goods, and our ports authority can also generate a lot of revenue, you know, which government can use for development. But such revenues were going to Cotonou government, you know, in the area of going to clear vehicles and clear other goods there. But Nigerian government said no. Why? Because they're also protecting what? Their national interest. If we have to do that, we have a good relationship with Cotonou, we all know that, but In terms of trade, no. We must shut our border, so that we can get enough revenue to take care of our domestic needs. So you see, in that case, national interest also suffers. So that is why you should not be surprised about what America is doing in the world.
All right, some of the opinion that though the world is now a global village, but the world is too big for America right now to occupy like what they used to do before, hence the emergence of these two new countries coming together, China and Russia. How true is that hypothesis?
Of course, it's true because we have what we call emerging economies. And China is an emerging economy, and the economy is growing very, very fast in terms of trade, in terms of military might, in terms of agriculture, and so on and so forth, even medical equipments and all that. So they want to take a bite of what America and maybe Britain have been enjoying alone and say, look, we have grown of age. It's just like a child who has finished his university education and the father is still trying to boss him or her around. They say, hey, daddy, I think I've overgrown this one. No, don't worry, I'm a man of myself now. So I think China is doing similar thing. They say, look, you cannot be getting the whole thing as it used to be because we are now an emerging economy, and we ought to also take some of those things you are enjoying international trade. We ought to also have our own share of what you are enjoying. You can no longer be the number one trade nation. We also want to have our. So in the process of doing that, they also have to go into serious research. Maybe where American is selling a product for maybe a machine for $200,000. China will say, well, we can do it for $100,000. And so that brings a kind of competition. So especially developing nations, they prefer to go and buy where the such machine that can do the same work is cheaper than buying it expensively from the U.S. So to a great extent, that is what led to what you call trade war. Trade war between America and China and Taiwan and what have you. And America is not happy with it because it's affecting the GDP, gross national product, and even gross domestic product, because what you produce locally that determines what you will sell across the border. And so it's not the U.S. is not happy about it. No nation will be happy about it because the influence of the war is now beaten because there are other emerging economy that is coming up, and everybody is struggling to have a share of the international cake, trade cake. And so some of us are not surprised why. And so what the U.S. is doing is only trying to struggle, try to use sometimes form an alliance with a country that they think is trying to take a bite of international trade and all that, because their trade balance is coming down. It's coming down. Yes, it's coming down. And so they're not happy about it. So if they can collaborate with Taiwan and co to ensure that such countries are there with even militarily or what have you, even espionage, they will do all to ensure that they maintain that level. But it will be very difficult for them because the world has changed. It's now a global village.
Very difficult for them because the world has changed. It's now a global village. Some of the opinion that some countries are becoming too repelled by the, so to speak, right now mentality they have about the U.S. when you talk about coming to rescue situation, that the U.S. always come in to see what they can get first before they act. They say they're getting tired of it, hence they're turning towards China, turning towards Russia, even some are turning towards North Korea. How true is this?
Wilson, if you look at it critically, how many times has China come, or any of these other emerging economy has come to, countries have come to save a developing nation from political crisis, economic crisis, food crisis, agricultural programs and what, then training military personnel and other for free. The U.S. does most of these things for free, for developing countries. Is China doing the same thing? All what China does, you want money, I can give you money, but what you cannot pay, I will take care of your seaport too. I will take care of your airport too. So it's like modern slavery. It's modern slavery. China is overprotecting her interests as compared to U.S. U.S. is more of a liberal country in terms of doing a lot of things for less developing nations. So I think we should look at it from that perspective. So in the process of doing that, they need resources to be able to carry out all those humanitarian gestures they are giving to less developing nations, especially African countries. And these other countries, they are not doing the same thing. So some of us are not surprised why the U.S. is doing what they are doing. And so China cannot now come from nowhere and say, oh, they want to have a trade war with the U.S. The U.S. deserve what they are doing, and some of us are seriously with them with what they are doing, because they need to maintain that level of business, or trade relationship with friendly nations, or what you call allies, so that they'll be able to carry out some of the humanitarian activities, in less developing countries. So I don't think it is right to say because they are doing that, they are oppressing other nations and all that. No, you need to. It's like a father. When a man dies, the first son takes over the property, and takes over virtually everything, most of our culture. Why do you think that culture is there? So that that fatherly role will continue, so that if any of the children needs things, because of the asset he has acquired from the father, he'll be able to take care of the junior ones and take care of the family. It's like nothing happened. So I think the same posture U.S. is maintaining. So I don't see what is wrong, except perhaps the oppressive aspect of it. You want something, instead of you to go through diplomatic relations, you just go there, use your military might, get what you want. If a leader is not doing what you want, do everything to remove that leader from power. And that excess aspect of it is not right.
All right.
But generally,
speaking,
I think they are doing good.
All right, now let's move down to Asia. Do double on it before, but I actually dwelled more on Asia. You have been accused of provoking China, accused of provoking Russia. Now, Paul has said
the U.S.
Yes, the U.S. that if it should escalate, it's all about China. Also, on the other hand, have been accused also of militarizing the seas. The China Sea and the rest of them. Dispute between China and, of course, Taiwan. Do you think that if this is not well handled, it may lead to an escalation that may even give birth to a war?
Well, some of us are not too surprised, because
right now China is talking tough. U.S., please stay clear. This is our own tough.
Yes.
Don't come close.
Yes.
U.S. saying no. Taiwan is our ally. We have to help out.
Yes.
So if this is not well handled, how do you think it will pan out?
Well, like I said earlier, I think what China is trying to do, they are trying to be the power block of Asian region. They are trying to be power block. And what are they doing?
Are they trying to be, or they are already? Because there are two different aspects. Trying to be and you are a power block.
No, they are not. They are not already. If they are, then they cannot have. They won't have conflict with the U.S. They will not have conflict with the U.S. They are trying, and there's no way Taiwan will agree, because Taiwan is also another emerging power. The industries are doing well. They produce military weapons and all that. So they are strong. The economy is also very strong. But they will prefer to do business with a country that they know can always protect their interests. Their goods can easily be sold in the U.S. and they make it, as compared to China. It will be difficult for them to sell their goods at China, because China is heavily industrialized, and so competition will be very stiff to do business with China. So they conveniently or comfortably they prefer to do business with the U.S. because besides the business angle of it, the Taiwanese can also go to the U.S. and invest their money, because the U.S. is seen as a safe haven when it comes to investment. When it comes to investment. And so the Taiwan will prefer to go there, invest their money, because they know the money is safe as compared to China, and they know that they can sell their goods and services to US easily because of the good diplomatic relationship as compared to China, who has been an arch enemy. So I mean, for God's sake, you only associate with somebody who seems to be your friend, who you believe in, than associating with somebody you have doubt. You have been having serious rivalry and all that. So I think that is what is happening. The idea of a war will not come in. Well, I think what you may say, trade war.
Yeah, because there's been trade between China and the U.S.
Yes.
Now, if trade want to come in, through what means, through what aspect?
If what?
The trade want to come into effect right now.
Trade war.
Yeah, between, let's say,
yes.
Russia, China coming together, and of course against U.S. and our allies in Asia. How do you think it will pan out?
The Russia and China, they will lose out. Because if you look at the trade figures
yes.
between Russia and US, about 106 billion dollars. 106 billion. Whereas the trade between China and US is about 586 billion dollars. And so
that's some good money.
That's some good money.
Wow.
And US is suffering a deficit of $310 billion. So why do you think the U.S. will continue to want to do business with China? They'll prefer to do business with Taiwan, a country they know they are going to have a comparative advantage over. And Taiwan, on their own side, will prefer to go and hide under the canopy of the U.S. because of the oppressive nature of China. And therefore, they will be protected. Their businesses will be doing well, they will be protected. The military might of U.S. will protect them and all that. They can always buy military weapons from the U.S. and they are safer to run away from the aggression of China. So some of us are not surprised why they are doing what they are. It's natural. But to say that it will lead to a war, natural, no. It will rather lead to trade war. And trade war is good because it encourages competition.
Competition and productivity.
Yes, and productivity.
Right.
And at the end of the day, developing countries like Nigeria, they are the beneficiary of such a trade war. So it's a healthy development.
All right, now if you take a look at these two gentlemen, you're saying Putin and of course Xi Jinping, they've invited smaller Asian countries, so to speak, to talk to them that, look, we are not the enemies.
Yeah.
We will protect you, do this, we're going to make you flourish even as much as the U.S. Do you think other Asian countries would believe these two personalities?
I think what
because that's the campaign right now.
Yes.
Just come, let's do business together. Forget about the U.S.
it will not work because what I'm saying to know, what are they benefiting from U.S.? What has China done to the economy? What have they contributed to the economy besides giving out credit facility? That is the issue. And why they are doing this? Do you think the U.S. will fold their hands and legs and be watching? They will also do something to influence those Asian countries. They can even give them military training, give them military aids, give them what you call medical aids for agriculture and all that, develop the agriculture. And when U.S. is doing all this, they do it free of charge, not on loan, not after that you pay me. But that of China, you have to pay. They do it in form of loan. So who is more friendly? Who is a more friendly nation? Of course, is the U.S. So any person would like to take cover in a country where you think the interest of that country is protected. I think that is what is happening. So that is where, you see, the U.S. is reaping what they sow. But China is stingy, selfish. They don't just give out something for nothing. They are not humanitarian in their approach to helping so-called developing nations. They are not humanitarian. But U.S. seems to be more humanitarian, even though in the process of doing that, their national interest is also protected.
Wow. Well, we're talking about this situation for quite a long time, almost an hour, 45 minutes of about talking about the global posture in U.S., China, Russia, power play. That is what is happening right now globally. Now, from what you are seeing,
yes,
how do you think this impasse can be resolved? Because it's getting heated up as we speak in Asia. China is accusing U.S. of undue interference. Russia also is accusing U.S. of undue interference. How do you think this can be at least whittled down?
Well, it will be rough, to be difficult, because it's like Russia is trying to give this impression that they also a world power to be reckoned with. And China, they have trade power and credit facilities power to nations. And the U.S. and China is also saying, hey, we have emerged. We are no longer the China you used to know. We are seriously involved in trade, and therefore, the U.S. cannot continue to dominate the international trade arena. You know, and the U.S. is saying, hey, look, we must maintain our position in international trade, and therefore, you cannot, we are going to monitor your goods that's coming into U.S. In fact, there's nothing, we are going to start like Trump did, going to start what you call custom duties, heavy duties on your goods that's coming into U.S. And so by implication, the U.S. wants to also maintain its economy and maintain that position of world power. So naturally, there will be conflict of interest. So it's expected. The conflict of interest is expected. You don't expect somebody who's been doing business, is doing very well, is all over the whole place, all over the world, and from nowhere, an emerging economy like China, US, China, Japan, Russia, and they now want to come and infiltrate the place. Of course, US want to put its foot on ground. If it's military might, they will use it. If alliance with the enemies like Taiwan, with the enemies of China, they will do it and align with them so that they can come as a force and deal with China and Russia. So I think that is what is playing out. So it is expected. If we say under this confusion between these nations, that things there will be peace. Naturally, there will be no peace because each country is trying to protect its interests. So it's expected.
So it's all about interest.
Yeah, it's all about interest. Like I said, like Margot Tal said, a nation's interest must always be constant. It's always constant, irrespective of the situation. We just came back home and gave the case of Cotonou and Nigeria. Yes. And Nigeria must protect its interest. Yeah, Cotonou, you are a sister African country, but our revenue is being affected, so we must close the border. The Cotonou government did everything, applied diplomacy to ensure that the government said, we are sorry. Our interest of generating enough revenue to run programs, is affecting Nigeria economy. So we must continue to close the borders. So because of what? National interest. So it's expected. It's expected. But to say that to eventually lead to I don't think so.
All right. Now, is there an end in sight to all this escalation in Asia because of the U.S.-China-Russia rivalry in that region?
Escalation
in terms of you encroaching into the airspace. China has been accused of encroaching Taiwan's airspace. You have been accused of coming close to China border, even Russia border. Is there an end in sight to all this squabble going on right now in that region?
Well, that is why we have international organizations like United Nations, where if country or member nations, you feel that a country is trying to infiltrate your airspace, you can carry the matter to the UN, who will look at it, because in that case it's no longer the two countries that are looking at it, the whole world. Leaders of the whole world, they will look at it and apportion blame and make appropriate recommendation why it should stop. But at the same time, there are countries who contribute so much to the UN. The US is the highest contributor. And so if they're the highest contributor, you cannot just sanction them anyhow. They dictate who becomes...
So you say that there must be negotiation somewhere. The Georgia aspect of it down, let's talk.
Yes, after all, it's established in their country. And they pay the highest, they fund the UN, the highest funded country. So they have control of their So all other countries, they just have to fall in because, like the normal say, once America sneezes in international arena other nations
catches cold.
Yes.
But that's what China is trying to break. China trying to break out of that jinx.
Do they have the military might? Do they have the finance? Do they have the humanitarian gesture that the U.S. has? So, how many? Then the population. When you talk about population, in fact, the U.S. is a continent. It's not just a country, it's a continent. It's a congregation of countries. So by so doing, they have a lot of power. And that is why we are also saying in Nigeria that if we remain as one Nigeria, we are stronger and more powerful. Nations will respect us more, you know, and in international relations, we have a strong voice. Countries would like to do business with us, you know. But if we start breaking away, break away, Biafra break away, then the next in every other subcultural group they are breaking away, then the country will not be strong again. Okay,
thank you so much, Prof. I really appreciate a wonderful analysis. Let's see how all this will pan out, because relationships have been broken, relationships also that have been forged amongst these three great countries, and they are dragging allies to themselves, either through the carrot or stick approach. Join us, you gain this, or you leave us, or you get some whipping. So it's like all about international politics. Okay, let's see eventually how China, Russia, US will maintain their position, or maybe a kind of a major upset in the ranking when you talk about global posturing between US, China, and Russia. Prof, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. We'll do it again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.